Joining me now is NBC News Homeland Security Correspondent Julia Ainsley. So, Julia, you followed these arguments today. What stood out to you, and what do we think happens next?
Well, I'd say what stood out to me, Garrett, is the fact that Texas kind of did an about-face on what this law means in the first place.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so that's where we started this morning. And the lawyer arguing for the state of Texas said, look, maybe Texas went too far. Those were the words we heard. And he said that, in fact, what could happen if Mexico refuses to take back migrants deported by Texas, as Mexico has said it will refuse to do so, that these migrants would instead just be handed over to CBP, Customs and Border Protection, at a port of entry. That's where migrants end up when they cross the border today, Garrett. So it really circumvents the whole purpose of why Texas would do this in the first place. They would have them arrested and sentenced for trespassing. That's something they're already doing now. Perhaps Texas judges could get involved and local law enforcement would feel empowered to start arresting people in the interior of the state. That could be a change. But it's really not the SB4 that was signed into law. It's not the SB4 that they've described and what they've put into briefs to this court or the Supreme Court. And it was a real surprise here. And in fact, the three-judge panel started asking the folks from the federal government arguing for the Justice Department, is this something you could agree to? It just got into this really weird hypothetical territory.
Yeah, that is very strange. So I want to ask you also about the former president. He's been ramping up his rhetoric still farther on the border. He's talking about the idea of a border bloodbath. Give us the reality check here about the violent crime, real-life statistics, both at the border and from migrants.
Well, I actually was just speaking to some folks yesterday who have been looking at the most recent numbers from the state of Texas, because that's the only state that actually records immigration status of people that they arrest. And for people arrested and charged with homicide, they are more likely to be U.S. citizens. In other words, illegal immigrants commit crimes overall on a lower rate per capita than U.S. citizens do. And as far as the numbers at the border right now, we're not talking about record highs. We saw that last year. This year, they've been around 5,000 to 6,000 illegal crossings per day. Certainly not exactly where they want to be, but it's not the dire five-alarm fire that we saw last year.
The other part of this that's interesting is the former president has been saying that Mexico will negotiate with him better. He will negotiate with Mexico somehow more effectively than President Biden has on this issue. What do we know about the state of that relationship, and what are Mexican officials saying about all of the border drama that we're experiencing on the northern side of it right now?
Well, Mexican officials tell me that it is a policy of this administration, and likely the next one, to be as cooperative as possible with the United States. They don't mess around with their largest trading partner. Mexico is also our largest trading partner. That's a relationship that needs to stay. But the Trump camp really wants to ramp up pressure on Mexico to take back more migrants, to interdict more migrants on their way to the United States. And they could do that in some pretty harsh ways, including tariffs. It's a question of, is Trump willing to play with the economy and global trade on that scale? So that's certainly something I'm watching for, and something you might be watching for, too, as you listen to Trump's rhetoric.
Definitely. And there's a presidential election in Mexico this year, so all of these balls are in the air.
Very soon, yeah.
That's right. All right, Julia Ainsley, thank you for that reporting.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.